Hey, Dwayne Kuiper here. If you're watching Bay Area Sports Rap, then you got nothing else to do.
You were on a podcast last week talking about personalities, how personalities are a requirement in your view. Baseball's really lacking personalities today. What kind of culture do you want to see in your clubhouse?
I think just for guys to be comfortable in their own skin. And it's a repetitive answer because I just mentioned, Drew Gilbert got a lot of attention because he wears some of that emotion and passion on his sleeve. But I know some of these players, maybe not personally, but the other guys in the dugout were wanting to win just as bad as Drew, too. They maybe just don't show it, and regardless of what your personality is, I think the biggest thing is to be, again, comfortable in your own skin and let that personality shine through, regardless of what the day is like, because there are a lot of days, and there's a lot of downtime in our sport. So, yeah, personality is somewhat of a requirement for it to go as well as I think it can go.
You mentioned the 1993 Phillies during that interview last week, and John Kruk used to talk about how after games, guys would stick around, drink beer, talk baseball. Is that the kind of thing you'd like to see from your players?
I think if they're comfortable with it, it is a different time now where I think guys respect their bodies a little more than especially that group probably did. Probably respect their hair a little bit too more. There definitely wasn't any shampoo being used on that team. But I think, the thing is let the guys kind of let that stuff evolve organically.
Right.
I think to push something on anyone too much isn't necessarily my role. If there's team leaders that think this needs to be done or that needs to be done, I'm in full support of that. But I think some of that stuff is better off happening organically. And if you do have an environment that is entertaining and it's welcoming and it's fun, then you tend to want to spend more time in that environment.
Baseball, by the way, is a very traditional sport, as you know, and the Giants are one of the few teams that have had as long a history as they do. How much have you familiarized yourself with their history, besides Willie Mays and William McCovey?
Yeah, with the nature of how this decision and everything went down, not as much recent homework as you would probably think or probably I should do, but just in general from being a sports fan, I still miss the days of reading the newspaper. I used to read the newspaper every day when I was a younger kid and seeing the box scores and the stats and things like that. And then one thing that was so fun to call upon was this guy's doing this well in 1988, but how does that compare to what went on in, 1975 or whatever it might be? And that's one of the reasons why it's great to come to the ballpark is you can tell stories and you can compare players and you compare statistics and things like that. And when you're talking about the San Francisco Giants, I've said it a few times now, if you just look at managers and players, it might be the richest tradition in all of Major League Baseball. At the very least, it's definitely an entertaining one with some of who those personalities are, whether throw out Brian Wilson or whoever you'd like.
Coach, first off, Sam Lubman, 95.7 The Game. I produced the morning show over there.
Yeah.
What's your vision for what a Tony Vitello coach baseball team will look like on a day-to-day basis, both on and off the field?
Yeah, I think that was a practice question that was thrown at me, and so you'd think I'd be prepared, but when I saw it, it's kind of tough to answer on the spot because I think one thing I watched major league managers do when I was growing up is they would kind of adhere to the roster that they had and the particular skill sets that those guys had were emphasized, and then of course you want to cover up weaknesses and things like that. So I can't be out on the field. I think I certainly have a job to do, but the team leaders and the guys that are out there every day are going to be at the core of who the team is. But I know when the Washington Nationals signed a guy that barely played in the playoffs.
33, yeah.
Yeah, I talked to those guys after Game 7 in Houston, and they all said, without this role player, we don't win a World Series. So that'll be an example that's called upon that everybody is carrying weight. And, I think that would be one attribute that I want to be seen as everybody is all in for carrying their weight, whatever it might be. Whether you're a reliever, a starter, you're a coach, or your personnel just working for the organization, if everybody is carrying their weight and excited to do it, then that is a reflection of, I think, good leadership. So on me.
And then Logan Webb, towards the end of the year, he said that he felt that the talent on this team was better than the record. What's your assessment of the current talent on this team? And you mentioned the strengths and weaknesses of the roster. What do you feel like right now are the strengths and weaknesses of the roster that you're inheriting?
Yeah, I would call on, some other major league managers and some other people that I talked to during this decision process. Everyone likes the club. Doesn't mean from top to bottom there's not areas that you can improve, but I think you've got to a good balance of a lot of different things in there, whether it be offense, some guys that are very highly skilled defensively. You've got some veteran leaders in there, and then there's also a younger influence with some players. Hopefully Drew can continue to do his thing, but I think it's well balanced and there's talent there. So I can see where he's coming from, and that's a frustrating feeling. It's very, very emotional with college kids when your season ends. Only one team can win the championship, but when the season is over, the one thing that I think is a fair goal is you don't want to have look back or regret. It is a sad feeling when it's over, but when you can reflect on the season and have that feeling of like, we got everything we could out of this group, there is a sense of satisfaction there, and I guess as we talk about it, that'd be one thing we'll be striving for.
Could you talk a little bit more about that relationship you have with your host family from Salinas and why it was important for them to be here today? Yeah, no, I mean, when you go away from home and maybe it's because I got 3 older sisters and, my mom was around, my dad was, I was around him plenty, but he was always working hard. You got a close bond there. So maybe I was too sensitive, but to leave home was a lot for me. And I had never been to California before. It was an area I wanted to go to. And immediately when you feel like you're at your home away from home, it just changes your mindset. It changes the way you go about things. And so now I'm living that out in San Francisco in a different way of, you come in the last couple of days, it's the world's spinning fast and you want to figure things out. And even though I'm somewhat familiar with the area, I don't know a lot, but people go out of their way to make you feel at home and pay attention to detail. And it's kind of been like reliving that, to be honest with you. What does the number 23 mean to you? It means you're sandwiched between 2 pretty good players in this organization. So a lot of pressure. A couple things that are personal that maybe if you ask me down the road, but in this particular case, the first thing I said when I walked off the stage when someone asked me about it was, you're sandwiched between 2 legends. So better keep that in mind with all your actions and your words, I guess. And it would be impossible and it'll never happen to live up to what those 2 guys did. But I guess it's fun to know you're surrounded by greatness.
And the guy who wore 23 back in New York, he hit the most famous home run there.
Yes. Yeah, so again, call it pressure if you want, but also a privilege to be around greatness. It looks like you had a little design on the inside of your suit jacket. Does that have any meaning to it? No, that was just something that was done a while back, and to be honest with you, that was to be worn at the CMA Awards. But again, maybe a little bit of symbolism there. Going from Tennessee to here is the first time I wore it. Do you consider yourself a country guy? Not really. I don't want to say a chameleon, but I love all music and I love all cultures. My grandmother on my dad's side, one of the last things she shared with me was travel as much as you can, and it's become a passion. And we've talked about players from different places and things like that. I love experiencing different cultures and seeing different areas. And even though we're all a part of, what I consider the best country in the world, it is very, very different everywhere you go. And I really enjoy experiencing that. And when I get to go out of the country, it's almost even better. Is there an impactful experience you've had traveling that comes to mind off the top of your head? None offhand, other than you get to be yourself. This is a job that is 24 hours a day when the season is going on. So when you're out of the country, for me, it normally meant a sense of relief and able to take a deep breath. But now what it means is, to me, it's a requirement for the job to go out of the country and become familiar with where some of these guys are coming from, maybe who some prospects are from different areas. So no story that comes to mind that I could share with you, probably. You got to stay out of trouble day one.
Tony, a lot of guys come in, from other teams, and they love to run or walk along this Embarcadero, and a lot of players locally live in this area. And are you a motorized scooter kind of guy? Are you going to get one of those? Are you a cyclist? Are you just power walker? Or do you go out and decompress by the water or any of those things?
My dad he coached swimming, so I've always liked swimming as a good form of exercise, and figure, I don't know, maybe if you get thrown out of a game, you could go take a swim in the cove there.
I've got the equipment you need, the buoys, the caps that'll make you very visible.
Chill out swimming.
But I have thought about doing kind of the bike ride thing. We'll see. I want to be close to the park for sure.
I was going to ask you, man, you obviously in Knoxville for a long time. Did you get any sticker shock with the housing prices out here coming from Knoxville to the Bay Area. Maybe did that sway you? It's like, I don't know about that.
No, the research was done ahead of time, and then I've got a lot of close friends up and down the coast, literally from Sonoma all the way down to San Diego, and recruiting has, I want to say forced. I've had the privilege of coming out here a lot because of recruiting, on top of friends and people that are somewhat family to me. So no sticker shock, but doesn't mean I'm happy with it, I can tell you that.
Tony, John, Shay.
Yeah, very nice to meet you.
My pleasure. We're here today because the World Series is travel day off, whatever.
Yeah.
Dodgers dominated this division 10 plus years. Were there conversations in the negotiations with Buster, et cetera, about the Dodgers? I mean, is a goal of yours to take down the Dodgers, compete with the Dodgers? Because the Giant fans are kind of looking at this and saying, what can the Giants do to get to that level, or at least compete with them? Because the Dodgers kind of own them in recent years.
No, we discussed it, just a few moments ago on television. And to answer your question more directly, that wasn't a big part of our conversations. We had so many. That wasn't a chunk of those. But I think coming from the conference that I came from in the SEC, you understand certain rivalries, and also it kind of can change at times who the best or who the programs are to beat. But at the same time, you start to learn a respect for everybody is dangerous and every game is important, especially when you're piling up the amount of numbers that we were talking about during the press conference. So a loss will go on your record as a loss, and a win will do the same. And again, these are the most talented players in the world. So I think that's kind of the perspective that I'm coming from the college area. But yeah, it's, I've been to 2 of those games, and the level of play and what those rosters look like is incredibly impressive. And you get it from all angles. You get it from a 41-year-old right-hander, and then the kid, I think last night, is 22. And it kind of goes to show you need assistance, or you need talent, and you need performance from a variety of areas. And whoever does that the best on any given day is going to be the team that wins.
What games were you at?
I was at 1, and then I was at the marathon.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Did you stay?
I did stay the whole time.
Yeah. Gamer. What do you think as a team as is? What does it need? How it's been 500 every year, it seems. For the last 4 years. What could it do to get better, and where do you see the strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, it sounds like the group last year was really close, but yet you hear a few of and I'm only going off feedback. The guys wish they were a little closer, especially in moments where it got a little more tense. So that's kind of more of a mentality thing. I think a physicality thing was, there were fundamentals that could have been better in certain games. And, of course, we're busy doing our thing, so I don't follow every game. But, again, getting feedback, whether it's a first step on defense or base running thing, there's just certain fundamentals that can pile up, in particular when you're in a close game. And the one thing about this ballpark that I think everybody's familiar with is there's a lot of close games. So that margin for errors is very small. So in spring training, being as detail-oriented as possible is certainly going to be a focus.
Tony, to that point, you went on a podcast recently, talked about how, at the major league level, a lot of guys are super skilled but may not necessarily know how to win. What does development look like for you at the major league level? Because there's a pretty significant difference between, an 18 to 22-year-old maybe trying to get more velo, and to what you said, trying to refine some of the small areas and get those small advantages where the margins are.
Yeah, I think a little bit of it is case by case. We get, you speak of margins, you get a 3-year difference for the most part in the gap of age your guys you're coaching. You could coach an Andrew Jones type guy, or you could coach a Nolan Ryan type guy. There's literally 2 decades in the middle there. So I think it's an easy answer, but it's one that applies. It's case by case. But overall, I do think we're reaching this period where fundamentals and the way guys train are completely different. And probably anyone that's under the age of 28 or so has been wrapped up in that showcase environment. And there's a lot of positives to it. And you've seen growth in velos and power and speed and things like that because of it. But I'm speaking on behalf of other coaches too, so I hope they agree with me. I think there's been some things lost when a kid is growing up on just how to slide and how to do things that seem overly simple. And if you haven't practiced it, you haven't been taught it, how are you going to be good at it? how can you be expected to be good at it? So I think some of those younger players, it needs to be emphasized more. And while I'm talking off the cuff, I think something that could really benefit our club is if the older guys will recognize that and, kind of have that big brother approach of, coaching up some of those fundamentals or just how to win a game in general.
Tony, I think you were at Coors at the same time as the Giants in September. Did you connect with Buster or anybody else at that point?
No, the former players. Now, we ran into each other in the hallway and said hello. I got to go down, kind of where the media go and say hi to Chase Dolander and Jordan Beck. And, Drew stayed on his side, which is probably smart. So then kind of gravitated over there and got to visit with all those guys. And it's pretty special. You don't get to... I'm appreciative that Buster went out of his way to speak about, as intrigued as I was at this, and I'd hate the opportunity to pass me by without giving it the right time. I had a job to do, and that's to hook it up with those players that were in Knoxville every single day. And when you are doing that, you don't get to see those guys in a big league uniform or play for Team USA. And so that was a special night to do that. And to be honest with you, Drew's a kid that I wanted to go out of my way to make sure I saw him in a uniform. And I didn't say it when they put this on, but you could argue this is the best home jersey in all of Major League Baseball. So it was cool to see him out there.
And going
couple more, you guys.
Way back, do you remember having those conversations with your dad when he was asking you about lineup decisions, about your high school team?
I think, with everything he coached and also at the high school, he would announce the football games and keep score at the scores table of the basketball games. So afterwards, I would hear those discussions, between he and his coworkers about could have done this, maybe move this guy here. And then I get old enough to where I can jump in those conversations and probably too early at a stage didn't know what I was talking about. But the more you're around something and the more you discuss it, the more information you gather and get a little better at it. So hopefully those golden days of being with my dad will serve me well.
Zach mentioned that your name has been tossed around a lot in the baseball world, but when you first got the offer and you got the call from Buster and the Giants, what was your reaction and what was your process like in first hearing about the offer and then making the decision?
Yeah, full disclosure, whether I should say it or not, I remember I was on a flight and there was no Wi-Fi and landed and there was a text, from Buster. And what it exactly said, I didn't know, but the season had ended. They had made some moves here, and I kind of just said, all hell to myself, like, here we go. This could be something. And, from there, it was awesome because, they took their time. They gave me space. They gave me a bunch of information. And then the people that I was able to lean on were incredible to me. A lot of people that went well out of their way to try and not influence me, but just be middle of the road and give me good information was incredibly beneficial.
This is ESPN radio announcer Mark Kestisher for Bay Area Sports Wrap. Please give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.